Olena, I'm under Roxolana.
Okay, I understood.
Okay.
You can start your video. Yes.
Okay.
Dear colleagues and friends, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar on how to search relevant information through Scopus bibliographic database and also some online platforms. This webinar is organized by Shevchenko Scientific Society, Danilo Galitsky Lviv National Medical University, and also Ukrainian Council of Science Editors. And it's going to be an really international event because we have participants from 9 countries, Ukraine, Bulgaria, Turkey, Croatia, Poland, and also Kazakhstan, US, and UK. And today we are going to discuss important issues, how to search relevant information in bibliographic databases. And we believe that knowledge gained during today's meeting will transform into advanced academic activities and will be very helpful for all stakeholders of science communication, for authors, for editors, for reviewers. I'm Olena Zimba, and I will be a moderator of today's meeting. It's a big pleasure and honor to introduce our today's speaker, Dr. Armen Gasparyan, who is an editor of several influential medical journals and also expert reviewer of Scopus database. Importantly, that he is non-Anglophone author with more than 100 English indexed articles. Also over the past 10 years, hundreds of medical journals have been upgraded and successfully indexed by Scopus, Web of Science, and also archived in PubMed, thanks to Dr. Armen's contribution as a consultant. Dr. Armen is going to share with us his rich editors, authors, and reviewers' experience. And also, I am very happy to introduce our regular contributor to our webinar series, Dr. Professor Lonchina from Chicago. Thank you so much. Dr. Vasil, would you like to say some words for our introduction?
Sure. First of all, welcome. Welcome to all participants and, and listeners to this terrific series of webinars, which began last year during COVID and has brought together this field of editors, writers, scientists, physicians, for the sole purpose of improving our scientific writing, our scientific publishing. Of course, part of it has also been our goal, especially for our Shevchenko Scientific Society journal, Medical Sciences, to achieve the ability to enter the Scopus database. And much work has been done to achieve that, and we're on our way. But overall, the purpose of this is multiple, really. We're trying to come out of the Soviet era of publications, which does not meet international criteria. It is full of duplication and self-satisfying publications, and in order to share what we have, and we have so much to share with the international community, we have to come up to those standards. And thank you, Armen and other lecturers that have been so good at, for each lecture, for each webinar, to prepare these fascinating lectures. Steps on how to do it. And if you just follow these steps, you will be guaranteed that your scientific work will enter the world literature. And that's the way, in today's global world, you can only share your data and your knowledge and your achievements by going globally. And to go globally, you have to abide by certain rules and regulations and instructions on how to do it. And this is what this series of webinars has been about. And I'm just thrilled to be a part of it. I myself have learned so much at each and every lecture that it helps me in my work as an editor and as a writer. And one other comment I'd like to make is about the ethics of publishing, which we've touched on many, many times. Ethics is so important in not only our clinical world, but also in our publishing world. We have to be ethically sound. We cannot be plagiarizing other people's works. And in research, we cannot be plagiarizing or stealing other people's data, nor can we fabricate data. So this is where the ethics of research, the ethics of publication comes in. And we certainly do touch on these topics during our various webinars. And there's so much to be learned. And so congratulations, Olana, for being one of the organizers of this. This is now, as I count, number 17 in the series. So that's a lot of work. And all the speakers have done a lot of preparation for these webinars. And I'm ready to listen. Thank you very much. And we welcome your presentations.
Thank you very much, Vasil. Let's start our webinar. Dr. Arman. Dr. Arman is going to present his first lecture about search strategies for narrative and systematic reviews. This topic is especially important for all scholars. One moment. I should allow you to share with us your screen. Yes, now you can do this.
Yeah. So I think you can see it now, yeah?
Yes, I can see your screen with your presentation. Yes.
Okay, good. So let me start out, yeah? May
Yes.
I?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. So, dear colleagues, friends, newcomers, thank you for attending this today's webinar, and thank you for supporting our international initiative aimed to increase quality of individual articles and quality of journals in Eastern Europe, in neighboring countries. And today we have authors. Some of them are our good friends, old friends. Others are newcomers. But today's discussed topics, will be of interest to all of them. We are going to discuss search strategies. And these search strategies should influence or should change their writing styles and also editing styles. So today we have authors and journal editors. All discussions, all presentations are of great importance to all of them in many ways. So I'm grateful to organizers of today's webinar, Shevchenko Scientific Society, which is the oldest scientific society in Europe. Also, I'm grateful to Danila Halitsky Lviv National Medical University, which is again one of the oldest European universities, medical universities, and also grateful to Ukrainian Council of Science Editors, which was launched just a few months ago and going to unite efforts of Eastern European, Ukrainian, and other journal editors who aim to increase quality and visibility of their journals by indexing with reputable bibliographic databases and archiving with a number of digital repositories. So let me share one of my quotes, which was drawn just a day before this webinar. This quote is about the importance of search strategies. We cannot have good quality articles without proper search strategies, without comprehensive and systematic searches via numerous online platforms and reputable bibliographic databases. So today I am going to discuss in detail several databases and search engines, going to discuss systematic approaches and what does it mean, systematic searches. Then I'll present some of the optimal or ideal search strategies for narrative and systematic reviews, and I'm sure that most of today's participants will deal with narrative reviews. Narrative reviews are frequently published with index journals, and most highly cited top general medical scientific journals and specialist journals publish numerous reviews which are abundantly cited and commented on social media. So, as an expert in internal medicine and rheumatology, I am particularly interested in top evidence-based journals in my field of interest, clinical rheumatology, and some of general medical journals, particularly New England Journal of Medicine and Lancet, frequently publish rheumatology reviews, and all these reviews influence clinical practice, practice guidelines, systematic reviews. So for all our participants, it would be desirable to refer to main journals in their field of interest, general medical field, and also specialist field of interest. All our participants should know that there are some organizations concerned with quality of different types of articles, particularly International Committee of Medical Journal Editors. It's one of the most prestigious editorial association with 14 journal members and 2 organizations. And International Committee of Medical Journal Editors regularly publicizes their guidelines or recommendations, updated recommendations, and some points of these recommendations also concern quality of narrative and systematic reviews. And of course, there is Equator Network, and their standards are now endorsed and enforced by most medical, biomedical, and allied journals. So I would stress out the importance of recommendations of International Committee of Medical Journal Editors and also reporting standards of Equator Network. Without these standards, without these recommendations, it's almost impossible to target good quality journals, index or even non-index journals. So going deeper and deeper into the field of search strategies, we should emphasize quality of journals. And some journals like Lancet, like Nature, New England Journal of Medicine, are now considered as individual databases or hubs of evidence-based information. So sometimes it is necessary to search via single journal, via journals like Lancet. So if you pay attention to narrative reviews published with Lancet, you will see that they have their own search strategy for narrative reviews. These narrative reviews are published as part of Lancet series, and all these Lancet series reviews are based on PubMed central search strategies. However, not all journals other than Lancet endorse this strategy. So PubMed is a good platform, reliable platform. However, for narrative reviews for most general medical journals, specialist journals, it's desirable to go to cover other databases and platforms as well. So if you pay attention to reference list of reviews published with Lancet, you can see that these references include top scientific and general medical journals. Also top specialist journals like Annals of Rheumatic Diseases. So pay attention. One of these examples refers to immunology reviews, New England Journal of Medicine, Journal of Experimental Medicine, Nature, Annals of Rheumatic Diseases, uh, Rheumatology Oxford. All these journals are highly cited, and you may even ask why all these references are cited, because Lancet has its own publication bias towards top medical journals, top evidence-based journals. You cannot see, it's rare when Lancet, Nature, Science, and other top scientific journals allow citing non-visible or poorly visible, non-digitized journal articles, including those from Eastern Europe. It's their own so-called publication bias. But when we analyze examples from other journals, let's say Clinical Rheumatology, it's a journal of International League of Associations for Rheumatology, we see that they have more so-called liberal strategy. They allow citing all other types of literature, provided all these literature sources are relevant and acceptable by reviewers and journal editors. So you can see again in most influential review articles published by Clinical Rheumatology and other specialist journals, top scientific journals are abundantly cited because reviews should be based on evidence-based literature. And nowadays, evidence-based literature, clinical trials, large cohort studies, practice guidelines, influential systematic reviews are published by reputable evidence-based journals. I here presented an example, my own example, which was published last year in the beginning of COVID-19 pandemic. And this article is well structured, well drafted, well edited. This is why it's readable and now well downloaded, more 31,000 plus downloads, more than 100 citations, around 170 tweets. So in terms of citations and social media attention, this particular article is well covered and is well attractive for international or global scientific community. There are some recommendations from International Committee of Medical Journal Editors. We all, as medics, as journal editors, reviewers, and authors, rely on International Committee of Medical Journal Editors recommendations, and some points refer to search strategies. You know, narrative reviews are based on certain search strategies. And when different research groups, research teams publish reviews covering similar subjects, some redundancies may occur, may be published by different journals. If narrative reviews are based on similar search strategies, the same keywords for searches, the same datelines, conclusions will be the same. So search strategies, unique search strategies covering something specific, something based on proper or proper choice of search engines, databases may help to avoid redundancies. So International Committee of Medical Journal Editors consider redundance when narrative reviews are based on the same search strategies, produce the same results, the same conclusions. To avoid these type of redundancies, it's better to publish systematic reviews or try to choose something specific in terms of search strategies, databases, and also coverage of literature. When we process systematic reviews, we pay attention to protocol of systematic reviews, and it is advisable to publish protocol of systematic reviews in advance with journals or archive somewhere to avoid redundancies, to avoid redundant systematic reviews. And of course, the main point of systematic reviews, again, refers to search strategy, how authors of systematic reviews draft their reviews, how they retrieve literature searches from different databases, which type of articles they process, and these type of strategies should be also based on comprehensiveness and systematic approach. So in terms of search strategies, both systematic reviews and narrative reviews should have the same strategy. And the same strategy comes from similar recommendations how to process relevant bibliographic databases. Basically, search strategies of systematic and narrative reviews are similar. So authors of both types of reviews should have full open access to a variety of proprietary databases like Scopus, Web of Science databases, some databases presented by EBSCO, information aggregator, etc. So authors should have full access to a variety of bibliographic databases, search engines, and also digital libraries. Libraries without access to online platforms, online repositories are no longer useful for authors. Authors need access to digital archives of all libraries. And you probably know that reputable universities, Oxford, Cambridge, provide limitless access to all libraries like British Library, Library of United States Congress. These are two huge libraries covering physical copies of journals, books, and other sources, but they also have their own digital repositories, digital platforms. I've learned recently that British Library now has its own online catalog, which is based on directory of open access journals, DOAJ. So once your journal is registered with DOAJ, Directory of Open Access Journals, your journal automatically becomes visible by users of British Library. So there are libraries which cover platforms, quite useful platforms. We'll discuss the role of Directory of Open Access Journals a bit later. So for narrative and systematic reviews, it is advisable to cover more than one bibliographic database because there are no bibliographic database with comprehensive coverage of literature. When you combine searches, improve coverage of relevant literature, and there are some recommendations to cover certain types of bibliographic databases and platform to provide comprehensiveness in your review articles. For authors of all other types of articles, like authors of hypotheses, authors of original research papers, it's again advisable to have own search strategies via Scopus, PubMed platform, DOAJ, Open Ukrainian Citation Index to cover relevant literature, professional and geographic, in terms of professional outreach and geographic coverage. So I've told you about Lancet. Lancet is a unique journal. It's a hub of evidence-based literature, one of the oldest general medical journals. And if you are going to analyze profile of this journal, you should go to National Library of Medicine catalog. You see the example, and you see that this journal is currently covered by Medline. Medline indexing is one of the most important milestones in the history of journal development. So all journals outside of Medline, particularly medical journals, need to upgrade their strategies, evidence-based coverage of literature, of articles, and apply to Medline to increase visibility, scientific prestige, and have more citations, more social media attention. So you see that this journal is also one of the oldest. Started its publication in 1823, but there are also other small lancets like Croatian Medical Journal, like Proceedings of Shevchenko Scientific Society, journals, flagship journals in their field, in their country, and these type of journals are representing not just their countries but also general medicine. And it is advisable to all flagship journals in Eastern Europe to upgrade their policies to publish more evidence-based articles to satisfy Medline indexing criteria. Sometimes it is necessary to search via Lancet or flagship journals to retrieve relevant literature, relevant review articles, and cite these articles. Usually, the review articles published by Lancet, New England Journal of Medicine are well cited, well endorsed, acceptable for specialist or general medical community. And if you publish review articles, one of the initial citations should go to Lancet, New England Journal of Medicine. This strategy, these tips are understandable to experienced, skilled authors because they start their searches through well-known journals, flagship journals, and then go to other narrow specialist journals, consider other types of articles as well. Lancet is a hub of evidence-based medicine, but there is specific another specific evidence-based journal and hub database, Cochrane database of systematic reviews, which is published as a journal with a relatively high impact factor. But at the same time, Cochrane database of systematic reviews is considered as a database of systematic reviews. And we need to search through this database to enrich our systematic, our review articles, our presentations with relevant systematic reviews. Particularly, I presented here an example of search tip of retrieving rheumatoid arthritis systematic review. So we may retrieve more than 100 systematic reviews from Cochrane database of systematic reviews. Then we should choose specific systematic reviews dealing with rheumatoid arthritis and perhaps also with other keywords. When we deal with keywords, we should go to MESH platform, Medical Subject Headings platform. It's a platform of structured keywords. MESH is a vocabulary controlled by published and controlled by National Library of Medicine of US, and their keywords increase. If you tag your articles with MESH keywords, you may increase visibility of your articles and retrievability. Also, journals that wish to be indexed by Medline, they should also encourage their authors and should have someone in their editorial board responsible for tagging articles by MESH keywords. 3, 4, 5, up to 6 relevant keywords are required for articles. So PhD candidates, authors of review articles should also know relevant MESH keywords, and they should use these relevant MESH keywords for PubMed searches and for Scopus searches as well, because Scopus uses MESH keywords along with EM3 keywords. So here I presented some of the examples of MESH keywords, like search engine, introduced in 2010, bibliographic databases, and also bibliographies as topic. So for today's presentation, these 3 MESH keywords are highly relevant, and I presented these keywords as examples. You may use different types of MESH keywords to increase informativeness, increase retrievability of your articles, and also attractiveness of your article for Medline indexing. Scopus, as a product of Elsevier, uses excerpta medica keywords along with MESH keywords and many other keyword vocabularies. So these keywords, M-based keywords, are of great importance to pharmacists, pharmacologists, toxicologists, chemists, biochemists. So you should know specific drug keywords, names of drugs, and you should properly tag articles, your published articles, with these excerpta medica keywords. And for that, you need access to Embase. So now, why we need searches through Scopus? Because we need to systematically analyze all hundreds of articles retrieved and related to our search keywords, MESH keywords or EM3 keywords. When we analyze by Scopus all these keywords, we go into sources covering our keywords. Here I presented bibliographic databases tagged in titles of articles, abstracts, and keywords. And I see that bibliographic databases are usually or most often covered by systematic reviews as journal, Cochrane database of systematic reviews, BMJ, Open, PLOS ONE, and many other evidence-based journals. So knowing about bibliographic databases is important to understand evidence-based medicine. So in terms, I present it here as an example of analysis by Scopus. So usually we pay attention to annual publication activity. If it increases, It means that the topic is interesting, popular, trendy, and it's worth publishing in this field. We should pay attention also to authors usually or abundantly publishing this field, because these are usually experts in this field, affiliations of these authors, countries, article types, and also professional areas. Medicine, social medicine, and many other fields relate to this specific example. So you can also use the same example to analyze keywords in your specific field of interest. And you may enrich your articles, narrative reviews, PhD dissertations by using this search tip. Here I present an example how bibliographic database is covered in terms of indexed keywords. So bibliographic database is considered as excerpta medica structured keywords. Usually I find these keywords from when I search through Scopus. I go to abstracts, then pay attention to mesh keywords and also EM3 keywords, because these two structured vocabularies are of great importance to me as a medic. There is a difference between Scopus and Science Direct, and you should know about this difference. Scopus is a bibliographic database, whereas Science Direct is digital library. Both are products of Elsevier. So Scopus covers journals, books, conference proceedings, whereas Science Direct covers many other sources, peer-reviewed, non-peer-reviewed sources, and all these sources are controlled or presented on Science Direct platform, which is a platform of Elsevier. So there is difference between Scopus and Science Direct. And my approach to systematic searches is to search through Scopus rather than Science Direct. Scopus allows to retrieve relevant articles, and then you may go to Science Direct as a library, digital library, and retrieve full text PDFs of articles that you are going to cite. All authors who are going to cite articles, they should read full text of their cited references. Now, why we need Scopus? Scopus is a reliable database for retrieving and monitoring citations. So here I present an example of retracted article. Article was initially published by Lancet in 1998. It's an article about side effects of MMR vaccine, autism as a side effect of MMR vaccine. You know that even nowadays we need MMR vaccine, measles, mumps, measles, and rubella vaccine to increase our resistance towards coronavirus. So MMR vaccine is useful to children. However, this retracted article was against MMR vaccine, and most parents, after reading this article, retracted article, resisted vaccination of MMR. However, in 2010, this article, after harsh criticism, after a number of reviews, expert opinion pieces advising against this article, against the main points of this article, even though published by Lancet, was retracted by Lancet in 2010. However, even after retraction, this article was still had been cited, and nowadays we have more than 1,600 citations to this article. This analysis of citation activity is quite important. It was part of one of the my latest articles about MMR vaccine retracted article, and also citation activity. So Scopus allowed me to analyze citation pattern of this retracted article, and my conclusion was that not all authors read articles that they cite. Sometimes they cite even retracted articles, but most experts advise against citing retracted articles. So you see that this article is still actively commented on social media, and it's an important experiment. When we consider citations alongside social media attention, we may also find some parallels. We may also find some interesting phenomena in terms of discussing retracted article, in terms of its attractiveness to Twitter users, to many other social media users. So now, social media Scopus is an important tool for analyzing different topics. And here I present an important example for all of our today's participants. You see an example of searching with COVID-19 tools, COVID-19 keyword. It allows to retrieve more than 132,000 Scopus indexed articles, documents, and when we rank all these documents, we may see that some of these articles are abundantly cited, particularly this one, good article published by Lancet in 2020, first article about clinical manifestations of COVID-19 in Wuhan, and this article is cited roughly 14,000 times by Scopus indexed articles. So we may use this tip, rank cited articles in descending order, and we may analyze all these articles. So now, along with citations, we should pay also to social media attention. So you see this top cited COVID-19 article, good article in Lancet, also well cited on Dimensions, well bookmarked by Mendeley users, and all those who work with bibliographies, they know that Mendeley bookmarkings usually correlates with citations. So these two indicators are positively correlated, usually, particularly in medicine. And also, most cited articles, particularly in medicine, particularly in top scientific journals like Nature, Lancet, BMJ, New England Journal of Medicine, are usually tweeted on Twitter. So we need Twitter to understand why highly cited articles are attractive. We may also follow social media threads to understand why these well-cited articles are well discussed. So here I also pay attention to countries usually commenting, usually tweeting. You see that some countries, particularly in Central Asia, Kazakhstan, and other Central Asian countries, are not active on Twitter, other social media channels acceptable to Americas, to Western Europe. So they should change, particularly scholars, should change their habit and should be more active on social media, particularly on Twitter, Facebook, to join global communication. So again, continuing our discussion of COVID-19 articles covered by Scopus, we pay attention to journals usually covering, and you see that some of these journals, particularly BMJ, Lancet, cover COVID-19 articles. And again, we should pay attention to some other aspects of COVID-19 articles. Usually, United States, United Kingdom, China, and some other developed countries and developing countries such as India usually publish or abundantly published in the field of COVID-19. There are some specific topics which relate to COVID-19, particularly mental health. And if you combine these two keywords, you may have roughly 7,000 articles, and you may use Scopus tools, analytic tools, and go deeper into the specifics of COVID-19 and mental health. Again, as you can see, United States, United Kingdom, China, India are countries which are most concerned with COVID-19 and mental health, and they abundantly published in journals indexed by Scopus. Ukraine not well represented on Scopus, and this is why articles in the field of COVID-19 and roughly exceed 100. So it's not good, and it's primarily because of poor coverage of Ukrainian journals by Scopus. However, journals in Ukraine are now actively developing, improving their editorial strategies, and situation may change in the coming months or years. So we also should pay attention to some specific keywords. I used here different approaches, combined COVID-19 with education, again, hot topic in the times of pandemic, vaccine, thrombosis, rheumatic, and Behçet's disease. You see that not all topics are well covered, but it also suggests that, let's say, articles on Behçet's disease in connection with COVID-19 are something new, and their publishability by indexed rheumatology journals are high. So chances of publishing articles on COVID-19 and Behçet's disease are high, whereas articles, likelihood of publishing articles in the field of education is decreasing. We use also Scopus-related platforms such as Saimago Journal and Country Rank to analyze specific fields of interest. For example, physical medicine and rehabilitation. We may analyze journals and may choose our target journals. We see that PMR field or rehabilitation field is relatively well represented in Scopus, more than 200 journals with impact metrics covered by Saimago Journal and Country Rank. Again, in the field of Ukraine, in terms of Ukraine, only one journal is covered by Scopus with impact metrics monitored by Saimago Journal and Country Rank. And I think that number of these journals should go up. In the field of immunology, we have slightly more journals, more than 220 journals. And these journals are, of course, their numbers and their citability higher compared to rehabilitation journals. And we have only one journal in the field of immunology covered by Scopus and monitored on Saimago Journal and Country Rank. Our authors, usually those who are going to publish review articles, should know that these are highly citable items, welcomed by most publishers. There are different types of review articles. Let's say hypotheses, scientific hypotheses, are also based on certain search strategies, search approaches, and sometimes they are also considered as narrative reviews. But classic example of review is systematic review with quantitative analysis of retrieved sources, systematic review with meta-analysis. These articles are based on PRISMA standards, reported and published based on PRISMA standard. The flow chart includes, you probably know this flow diagram, and it includes identification of relevant sources from bibliographic databases, how you exclude these irrelevant sources, and how you end up with 20, 30 relevant articles and how you process them. For systematic reviews, sometimes also for narrative reviews, we need to analyze retrieved articles using PICO tool. PICO is an abbreviation of search strategy and also analysis strategy: population, intervention, comparison, outcome, and study or study type. PICO or PICOs. So we need to analyze all articles for our narrative and systematic reviews by understanding which patients were covered by retrieved articles, which intervention was used, comparators, placebo or other comparators, outcomes, final out primary and secondary outcomes, and also study types, which article types we should process: trials, large cohort studies, case series, or even single individual case studies. Without PICO tool in our mind, we will have difficulties with processing literature. When you look through the prism of PICO, it makes our life easier and helps to analyze literature. PICO tool is also useful for reporting or publishing protocol of our systematic review with Prospero. So initially, systematic review protocols are published or registered with Prospero, then published with journals. But again, we need to know about PICO model, and we should report in line with PICO approach how we are going to process our studies. Lancet series reviews have their own specific search strategy. Usually, Lancet reviews are written by experts, and they may rely on their own experience and some limited number of articles retrieved via PubMed platform. Again, when we analyze these type of articles, we should pay attention to citability. These are well-cited articles, and they have specifics in terms of their titles, in terms of search strategies. So it's specifics of Lancet. But most of the other journals consider more comprehensive search strategies via multidisciplinary databases, Scopus and Web of Science databases, specialist databases like Embase, Central Database of Cochrane Library, CNAHL, Nursing Literature Library database, Global Health, PsycInfo. Let's say psychiatrists, psychologists, neurologists need to have access to PsycInfo, And all journals, particularly Ukrainian psychology, psychiatry, neurology journals, should also apply to PsycInfo. They have their own strict indexing criteria. Now, when we process articles for systematic reviews, we should specify which type of articles we process. If we are going to process clinical trials, randomized clinical trials, we should go to central database of Cochrane Library, which contains records of an impressive number of registered clinical trials. All these clinical trials are registered with clinicaltrials.gov and covered by Cochrane Library. So now, in terms of clinical trials, we may also use Embase, Excerpta Medica database, which expanded its coverage in 2010, but still it's considered as a European database, and most US-based scientists prefer to search through Medline rather than Embase. So you see, there are some geographic differences, and these differences also concern some commercial interests, some other subjective interests, but my approach is to use Embase for covering clinical trials on drugs, medical technologies. When we consider different databases, we see that not all databases are comprehensive. When we compare, let's say, Medline and Embase, there are overlapped journals. So both databases cover a large amount of journals. And in terms of medical technologies, drugs, there are overlaps. But when we compare Medline and Embase with PsycInfo, there are huge differences. So if you are going to cover or write article about psychiatry, about psychological outcomes of COVID-19, you need to combine searches by Medline and PsycInfo. There are also other differences. So choice of digital platforms, databases depends on topic of our systematic or narrative review. You see that, let's say, for surgeons, Embase is a useless database because it concerns mainly drug therapies, chemical agents, medical technologies, but not surgical interventions. For surgeons, probably PubMed combined with Scopus, combined with Web of Science, more suitable combination. For all those who need to cover open access items, DOAJ, Directory of Open Access Journals, is a useful platform. It's not a bibliographic database, it's a digital platform useful for retrieving items from countries like Eastern Europe, Ukraine. More than 200 journals are now covered by DOAJ from Ukraine. So it's good strategy to combine Medline, Scopus searches with searches via DOAJ to provide comprehensive coverage of Ukrainian sources. But of course, for most Ukrainian authors, it's a good strategy to combine PubMed, Scopus searches, DOAJ searches with open Ukrainian citation index searches. This search engine covers more than 1,500 Ukrainian journals. But it's also useful search engine for all other countries because it covers an impressive number of journals covered by Crossref, tagged with digital object identifiers. So we may combine our searches using Open Ukrainian Citation Index, and it allows to analyze even Lancet. We may find the most cited articles. Let's say one of the statistical articles by big name in statistics, Doug Altman, is highly cited, and it is published by Lancet. So it's a useful search engine in terms of analyzing Ukrainian articles in connection with social media. Here I present an example of Plum Analytics, Plum print of this Ukrainian article. Again, it Open Ukrainian Citation Index provided me such an opportunity to cover citations with social media attention. It also allows to analyze specialist journals like psychiatry journals, Psychiatria Danubina. Again, I should pay attention to cross-ref citations covered by this search engine. I may use also this search engine to analyze COVID-19 articles. You see that numbers, we analyze Scopus articles, and now we see that articles covered by Open Ukrainian Citation Index is 2 times more compared to Scopus, because this search engine is stick to cross-ref. And we see that again, we may analyze Ukrainian articles covering COVID-19. There are number of these articles is around 400 compared just 100 indexed by Scopus. So Open Ukrainian Citation Index is a good regional search engine, and it should be part of review articles, search strategies of review articles published by Ukrainian authors and covering Ukrainian topics. But overall, we need to know about referencing recommendations. First of all, we should cite widely visible sources, covered by Crossref. We shouldn't cover sources like PhD dissertations. Instead, we should cite articles published within the frames of PhD dissertations. We should avoid citing Congress abstracts. Instead, we should find full texts, full articles of Congress abstracts, and publish and cite Congress and cite full papers, not Congress abstracts. But of course, some clinical reviews, also search strategies of clinical reviews include searches through Congress supplements like EULAR, ACR, and other rheumatology Congress abstract supplements. But the most important thing here is we may choose limited number of Congress abstracts for citations, and these Congress abstracts should be the most recent ones, because all the oldest or old Congress abstracts usually published as full papers. And of course, we shouldn't cite retracted items. So I encourage all our participants to stick to these recommendations of citing desirable and undesirable references. When we analyze articles, we should also know there are some specific strategies. We should pay attention to study design, and of course, for homogeneity of our analysis, meta-analysis, we should focus on specific types of articles. In narrative reviews, we may have different types of analyzed articles, but again, we should analyze these different types of articles, different types of study designs in different tables. In systematic reviews with meta-analysis, we have to analyze homogeneous study designs like clinical trials only, or large cohort studies only. So we may also pay attention to number of patients. Let's say if you analyze cohort studies, you may choose to analyze cohort studies with more than 100 patients. Or if you are going to group surveys, you may stick to, you may analyze surveys with convenience number of more than 100, because if survey studies are based on less than 100 responses, these survey studies not so interesting, are not based on robust methodologies. So choosing numbers are also important. You may also consider analyzing articles or cohort studies, clinical trials based on specific patients group, like rheumatoid arthritis. And of course, we should also pay attention. We should understand whether methodology is robust enough for our analysis, whether it's updated, it's based on updated methodology or not. And for that, we also have to choose recent articles within 5, 7, 10 years. So these tips are important to understand basic principles of choosing specific types of articles. But of course, there are specific tools for analysis of articles based on evidence, specific types of evidence-based tools, great for systematic reviews. In conclusion of this part of our webinar, I'd like to remind all our participants that research reporting guidelines, standards of equator network are important. And these recommendations or standards are important for systematic reviews. But for all other types of articles, systematic and non-systematic reviews, and or original research papers, hypothesis articles, we have to use highly relevant keywords from MESH, from EM3, from all other specialist keywords, vocabularies. Combining PubMed with Scopus is desirable and optimal in biomedicine. And of course, complementary data platforms are DOAJ and Open Ukrainian Citation Index. Over to our moderator. Now,
yes, dear Arman.
Open to questions. If there are questions, we may slightly switch to questions, quick questions.
Yes, we encourage our participants to ask questions, to provide comments. And now we have one comment from Dana, Bogdana Duskaluk from Ivano-Frankivsk. She would like to ask this question personally. Dana, you can do this.
So, hello, many thanks for your perfect presentation. It was really very informative. So sorry, my webcam is a bit broken. That's why I'm without a picture. But I hope that the question will be still understandable. I recently have experienced one problem. When I have made the search via the different databases, I had a lot of articles that were duplicated, and I actually deleted all the duplicated articles manually, and it was not so easy, although the references were approximately 60, not more than 70 at least. But if I would like to prepare some more deeper or wider narrative review, there could be 150 or even more. So what tool would you advise for deletion of all the duplications? Because the different articles could be visible as in the Scopus as well as in the Web of Science or PubMed. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Bogdana Duskaluk, a representative from Ivano-Frankivsk and one of the key persons in Ukrainian Council of Science Editors. Thank you for excellent question. So those who are going to write narrative reviews, they usually deal with Medline and Scopus. So they may retrieve 200 articles from PubMed and 300 articles from Scopus. However, After that, they have to get rid of duplicates. And unfortunately, we don't have any valuable tool for filtering out our search. We should do it manually. So we should, first of all, we should consider titles of these articles, abstracts, keywords. And we should get rid of these articles based on these minimal search tips, instead of reading full articles. By limiting our number of articles to, let's say, 200, we still need to apply some exclusion tools. And these exclusion tools can be, again, new keywords, new search strategies to allow us to limit number of our articles. With 150 articles, we may start writing narrative reviews, but for systematic reviews, we need to go down to 20, 10, even sometimes 10, but not less. Because for systematic reviews with just one analyzed item, it's not so good. So there should be balance. For narrative reviews, we may have hundreds of articles, cited articles in our review articles, whereas for systematic reviews, we may cite and may process quite limited number of articles. So we have a number of digital tools, but unfortunately, we have to use manual strategy to avoid duplicates, to focus our attention to most relevant articles.
Can we use Medline for this purpose, or EndNotes for avoiding duplications? Yes, for filtering duplications.
Yeah, it's good strategy to organize your references using Mendeley, using other reference managers, using EndNote to organize your own library. But unfortunately, all these reference managers still need to be manually controlled. So each entry to Mendeley or EndNote or any other reference manager requires your attention, requires your comments. So, and for comments, you need to manually, or you should go to these papers and analyze these papers manually.
Thank you, Armen. And one question from me. PubMed Central and Medline. They are often confused by authors. How are they different? Could you provide us with more details?
Okay, so I'll discuss this point later on, but for now, I'd like just to remind that PubMed is a bibliographic database. Medline is a bibliographic database. PubMed is a search platform. PubMed Central is an archive or digital repository. So there is difference. For Medline is a database of evidence-based articles and evidence-based journals. And we usually use PubMed for daily searches. However, we do not distinguish when we retrieve articles from PubMed. We do not pay attention whether initially whether the paper is from Medline or PubMed Central. But it's necessary to pay attention to this point as well. So I'll discuss in detail the difference later.
Thank you. Well, and one more question from our participants from Vasily Lanchina. Should keywords be limited only to mesh terms, or can they also have novel terms, not in mesh?
Perfect. Yes, Professor Lanchina, you are right. If you feel that mesh terms are not enough to cover our prospective review article or any other article, narrative review, systematic review, original research paper, you may use logical keyword. Keyword just that you think is an important search term for your article. So sometimes we pay attention to author keywords. These keywords are not sometimes not structured keywords, but journal editors should analyze, should use in mesh term platform these words and find out whether these words are already covered or whether there is relevant synonym from mesh keywords, mesh terms. So mesh terms are important for medics, allied specialists, but sometimes it is also to use EM3 keywords by pharmacists, by chemical specialists, biochemists, except a medical tree is a prime, the most important structured vocabulary for pharmacologists, pharmacists, and other specialists. But of course, we should understand what's the difference between mesh, EM3, other specialist database keywords, and we should combine structured keywords with new keywords. Like COVID-19 initially was new keyword, not covered by mesh. However, now we know more than 10 mesh keywords related to COVID-19 and coronavirus. So sometimes it is necessary to use new keywords, logical keywords.
Thank you, dear colleagues. Other questions to Dr. Arman?
I think we should go further, move towards our next.
Who? Who?
Second topic of our.
Oh, okay. Let's move on to the next item of our agenda. Arman, you can share with us your screen.
Okay. So I think this part, indexing databases. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see. Everything is fine. Yes.
Okay, well. So, thank you for great questions. I think that we need to understand some bibliographic databases to improve our search strategies, to target these databases and search platforms, and to increase visibility of our articles and our journals. All journal editors attending today's webinar should know about instructions for authors and publication ethics statements. And they should know main points of instructions for authors. Without covering these points in instructions for authors, indexing journals by Scopus, Web of Science, Medline, almost impossible. So pay attention to points which should be presented in your instructions for authors. Now, few words about Scopus. Scopus covers 100% of articles indexed by Medline, but not the opposite. Advantages of Scopus. Scopus is the largest non-Anglophone databases. You see that it's relatively new database compared to Web of Science databases, compared to Medline, and it's one of the largest bibliographic databases. More than 25,000 journals are indexed by Scopus, whereas Medline covers slightly more than 5,200 journals. Scopus distinguishes open access journals, those registered with DOAJ. So journal editors who are going to apply to Scopus should know that without registration with DOAJ, chances of indexing their open access journal by Scopus are slim. So try first to tag all your articles by DOI, Digital Object Identifier from Crossref, then go and register your journal by Directory of Open Access Journals, and only then apply to Scopus. The same strategy was used by Proceedings of Shevchenko Scientific Society, and I'm sure this is why these journals first attempt to Scopus indexing, Scopus was successful. You should also know that Scopus processes articles tagged by different structured keywords. So Scopus covers mesh, except the medical tree, engineering and engineering index thesaurus, geobase index, regional index, species index. All these keywords, keyword vocabularies are of interest to different specialists. So Scopus is multidisciplinary database, and it allows specialists in medicine, in biomedicine, biology, zoology, sociology, psychology, etc., in many subject categories to use and benefit from Scopus searches. It covers 26 subject categories, one of the largest well-organized bibliographic databases. Scopus indexing is required for improving university ranking. If your university publishes Scopus index journals, it's good for your journal. It allows to increase visibility of your faculty members, and also to compete with other universities also covered by Scopus. So it's good strategy to increase Scopus index journals published by universities, but it's also good to internationalize, globalize these journals and cover not just university articles, but also articles from many other countries, many other universities. I know that today we have participants from Ivano-Frankivsk, from Kharkiv, from Sumy, and all these faculty members should strive to increase quality of their university journals and should publish more in English in their journals to increase indexability of their journals by Scopus. The same refers to other participants from Bulgaria, from Turkey, from Croatia. So Scopus is a proprietary database owned by Elsevier. However, some of its tools are freely available to public. So you can use it without any subscription. However, it's good to have access to Scopus advanced tools. It's possible via your libraries, via your ministries of science education. You should know that journal indexing by Scopus is based on expert recommendations of 17 subject chairperson. I know personally some of them in the field of medicine, public health, sociology, health sciences, and I cooperate and I recommend some amendments in their journal selection habits. And the aim of these recommendations is to increase quality of journals covered by Scopus. Scopus has its own strict indexing criteria, and these indexing criteria may differ across different disciplines. Let's say in arts and humanities, they have their own strategy. Non-English journals in arts and humanities may be covered without any difficulties compared to journals in medicine. So in medicine, particularly in the field well represented in Scopus, competition is tough, and nowadays main requirement is to publish more in English to attract global audience, to increase more citations. So there are some differences between specialties. Scopus pays attention to digitization of your journals, to your journal platforms. One of the best journal platforms, free journal platforms, is Open Journal System. However, I think that you know that it's better to power this platform with many other digital tools to satisfy Scopus stringent technical requirements. One of these requirements is also visibility of authors. I know that you know about ORCID, Open Research and Contributor ID, and you often tag your articles with your ORCID IDs. However, it's important to make your ORCID IDs openly accessible, publicly accessible, with information about recently published articles from reputable journals, your contributions as reviewers and editors to reputable journals, only reputable. So ORCID IDs are important for Scopus, for those journals who are going to apply to Scopus. Scopus has its own selection criteria, basic, traditional, which are English language abstracts. So I know that in Eastern Europe, in Poland, in Ukraine, in Lithuania, and Bulgaria, journals based on old publishing strategies publish articles without paying proper attention to abstracts. So abstracts are required for covering your articles by Scopus. This is why you need to pay attention to readability, to structure of abstracts, to inclusion all pertinent information in your abstracts, and your journal instructions should also include important points how authors should edit their abstracts. If abstracts submitted by authors are unsatisfactory, journal editors should require their authors to revise abstracts. And if they feel that not all keywords are covered by abstracts, revisions should, technical revisions, even after proofreading, these types of revisions should go on and on. So Scopus pays attention to regular schedule of publication, editorial policies, publication ethics, and also to references. If your authors are citing Ukrainian or non-Romanized, non-Latin references in abundance, chances of indexing your journals by Scopus not so high, because Scopus pays attention to visibility of references. And if they see that most references are non-digitized, non-visible in online space, they may require additional rounds of revisions by journal editors. So advice to authors and editors: cover more sources, more articles from Scopus, PubMed, Web of Science, to increase quality of your references. There is also detailed indexing strategy by Scopus experts. These indexing strategies relate to journal policy, content coverage, citedness. So without citations, chances of indexing your journal by Scopus are slim. Then regularity. If there are delays in publishing, particularly even in the era of COVID-19, you will have problems with Scopus indexing. Journals that covered by indexed by Scopus and in the era of pandemic have difficulties with publishing may be suspended. Online availability refers to English journal platform, digital tools used by journal editors. So all journals should be well digitized, well edited, copy edited to satisfy technical criteria of Scopus. There are some minimal criteria. I am not going to discuss all these minimal criteria. Simply, I will pay attention to quality of abstracts, because both authors and journal editors need to know that their abstract should be structured, concise, informative, and also these abstracts should be for reviews, systematic reviews, and original research papers, but not for editorials and letters. Peer review. Peer review should be monitored on journals Pablon's page. And Pablon's is a valuable digital tool. Again, it's important for increasing indexability of your journals. So here I present Pablon's list of more than 1,600 experts covered by Pablon's in the field of rheumatology. And you see that some of these experts are like Dr. Zimba, like Dr. Doskaluk from Ivano-Frankovsk, have quite impressive Pablon's profiles. When we analyze, we may also analyze country-based platforms, profiles of reviewers. We may also pay attention to individual platforms and pay attention to where these experts review journals represented on Pablon's. Here I present an example of Pablon's partnering journals, clinical rheumatology. This journal has more than 4,000 reviews validated by Pablon's platform. And we also see some of these experts regularly review for this journal. Some of experts endorsed this journal on Pablon's platform. It's also important, and I encourage all today's participants to choose best journals in their field and endorse Pablon's pages of these journals. Digitization is important for indexing, and it starts from electronic ISSN, goes to digital object identifier, and ends up with ORCID IDs of individual specialists. References are important. They should be relevant, updated, diversified, and I usually ask authors of review articles to update their reference lists. Updates require regular searches through Scopus, PubMed to retrieve relevant and newest articles. In terms of publication ethics, we regularly discuss publication ethics issues, and plagiarism is number one issue in this field. So particularly those who are going to write review articles should be very careful. They should check their manuscript by authenticate prior to submission of their manuscripts to journals, and journal editors should be in a position to check submission by authenticate. Here I present an example of good startup journal, Central Asian Journal of Medical Hypothesis and Ethics, powered by Open Science in Ukraine. And publication ethics is the essence of publication ethics statement. So all submissions to this journal are checked by Authenticate for similarities. It's a software of Crossref, and I also ask journal editors of all other journals publishing English articles to check primarily review articles by Authenticate. Ethics is well covered in two important documents: Principles of Transparency and Best Practice in Scholarly Publishing, and also Core Practices of Committee on Publication Ethics. Authors and editors should know about both documents. Why they should know about these two documents? Because they should analyze target journals, and if target journals do not satisfy criteria of principles of transparency, no need to submit any manuscript to these journals. Application to Scopus is technical and usually require 9 exemplary articles. There are certain steps. These are quite technical steps. We discuss in detail these steps. It relates to editorial boards. To become editorial board members, our participants should also increase their reviewer skills, improve their reviewer skills, become editorial board members, and gradually increase their editorial credentials by attending these editorial meetings, language courses, digitization courses, etc., etc. So who are main handling editors? To become chief editor or responsible editor, associate editor, social media editor, there are also certain requirements. And the best editors are those with editorial credentials. Editorial boards. There are a number of selection criteria. I'm again not going to discuss all these points in detail. Simply, I'll encourage you to become more internationalized, to cooperate with international journals. There are now thousands of international journals. So chances of indexing internationalized journals are high, and it requires also to involve peer reviewers from other countries also. Scope and coverage is important. If you edit your journals, you should know specific scope of your journal. Without having specific, unique scope of interest, chances of indexing, let's say by Medline, are slim. Factors of high journal impact. Not impact factors, but impact. There are some new or startup journals satisfying some of these criteria. Let's say English language. If your journal publishes articles in readable English, chances of acceptance by Medline increasing. The same refers to Scopus. So if your journal is covered by Scopus, attract citations, become visible by Simago journal and country rank, impact or prestige of your journal may increase. So pay also attention to coverage of your journal by social media, because altmetric profile also gaining momentum, and it's important to have more social media metrics, more tweets, more Facebook mentions to compete with many other journals. Web of Science selection criteria almost similar to Scopus selection criteria. There is slight difference. Let's say Web of Science prioritizes journals of prime interest to US. And if your journal is going to satisfy Web of Science indexing criteria, you should publish articles of prime interest to Americas. And of course, you should publish in readable English. there is one important database, Emerging Sources Citation Index. So this is a relatively new database, started in 2015, and it covers more than 100 journals from Ukraine, but most of these journals unfortunately still belongs to this database. But the idea was to incubate, to aggregate journals in this database, and then go higher, go to other global or bibliographic databases like Science Citation Index Expanded. So Medline indexing criteria. You should know that Medline is a good and evidence-based database, one of the few evidence-based databases. We consider also Cochrane databases, nursing database like CINAHL, also evidence-based databases. So if your journal publishes evidence-based articles, large trials, large randomized controlled trials, large cohort studies, and understand the importance of evidence-based, so chances of coverage by Medline are high. You should also know that there is difference between PubMed, PubMed Central, PubMed Platform, and Medline. Some overlaps are possible in PubMed platform, but these are three different terms: PubMed Central, PubMed, and Medline. And if your target journal is covered by Medline, Scopus, Web of Science, MBase, and even Emerging Sources Citation Index, prestige is increases, and your journal is considered as reputable and, of course, non-predatory, because we now divide journals into whitelisted and blacklisted. Those covered by all these prestigious databases, primarily Medline, are considered as reputable, reliable, non-predatory journals. Now, how to find Medline index journals? Sometimes it is necessary for for authors and journal editors. So we know that there are now roughly 5,300 Medline index journals. So you see that compared to Scopus, numbers is lower. Number of Medline index journals is lower. However, Medline focuses on evidence-based journals with exemplary technical profile, technical in terms of digitization, in terms of converting articles from HTML to XML files. So XML files are important for Medline indexing. We may also find only 2 Medline index journals from Ukraine: Experimental Oncology and also Проблемы радиационной медицины та радиобиологии. You see that priority of topics like oncology, radiology, radiation are high. These topics are of prime interest to Medline, Scopus, so you may also, your journal in the field of radiology, oncology may also compete with other journals indexed by Medline. There are also different set, or there is also a different set of journals. Journals archived by PubMed Central. Roughly more than 3,000 PubMed Central journals are now available, and your journals may also satisfy their criteria. Unfortunately, there are no any PubMed Central archived journals on PubMed Central. But with digitization, it's possible. Croatia has more than Croatia has 5 journals archived by PubMed Central. You see, some of them are not indexed by Medline. However, some, like Croatian Medical Journal, like Acta Clinica Croatica, are indexed by Medline and also archived by PubMed Central. So it's good. You see that there are 30 journals archived by PubMed Central from Poland. So Poland is better digitized in terms of in the field of medicine. So their journals are more widely visible, and you may also take example of Croatia and Poland to improve the situation of Eastern European journals, medical journals. Now, about Medline. Medline considers evidence-based journals with specific scope, with specific interest, geographic interest, primarily geographic interest, not well represented by other journals. So Eastern Europe is one of the priority geographic topics for Medline. And also they pay attention to structured abstracts. Nowadays, they also pay attention to XML conversion of your references. So XML conversion is important. Those who are going to apply to Medline may also consult these source recommendations how to XML, to use proper XML files for Medline indexing. And you may also experiment with this validator to find out whether your XML conversion is good or not. So once your journal is covered by Medline, visibility increases for readers and authors, and they all articles sooner or later are tagged by mesh terms. So Medline index journals are covered by mesh terms, so it increases retrievability of their articles. Medline coverage requires processing by Literature Selection Technical Committee, and they pay attention to a number of factors. Journal editors may consult all these points. They should pay attention after satisfying all scientific criteria. They should also pay attention to quality of XML conversion. So here I presented an example of recently indexed by Scopus journal. Scopus doesn't require XML conversion, but there are many other indexing services, online platform requiring different types of XML conversion. Let's say PubMed Central requires certain type of XML conversion, JATS XML conversion, that includes full text, whereas Medline only refers to metadata. DOAJ, Ggate, Crossref they also have their own XML conversion requirements. So you should know about XML, Extensible Markup Language. It's computer language, something quite different from HTML, from PDF, from Word documents, but it's necessary to understand. Now, how to satisfy Medline indexing criteria? Your journal should publish some or most articles in English. These you should have different types of articles, evidence-based articles, case reports, clinical practice guidelines, and there should be specific priority, regional, professional, specialists analyze all points. It's quite tough indexing process. And at the end, journal should collect 3.75 points for satisfying indexing criteria of Medline. After that, journal should also submit XML converted file. If they passed indexing requirements, they should also find agent to convert their files for XML conversion. Now, about Embase. Embase is a database of prime interest to pharmacists, pharmacologists, biomedics, toxicologists. Journal editors may also apply to Embase to cover their journals, but they should also know that some Scopus index journals are automatically covered by Embase. Let's say at the application stage, journal editors contacted and ask whether they wish to be covered by Embase. But sometimes failed Scopus applications satisfy Embase requirements, and they may also end up with Embase. There is slight difference between Embase and Medline. Embase covers more non-Anglophone articles, non-English articles. Procedure for journal application is simple. Their requirements are much easier compared to Scopus indexing requirements, but again, you should pay attention to quality of English full text because Embase pays more attention to full text in English, in understandable English. And of course, they pay attention who is the publisher of your journals. Authors and journal editors should know about CAB Direct or Global Health Platform or bibliographic database. It's important for those who are analyzing COVID-19 articles, articles in the field of toxicology, environmental health, zoology, biomedicine, etc. For some of our journal editors, Journal Talks as a distribution platform is important, and I encourage them to cooperate with them. Crossref now is requirement for almost all scientific and scientific journals, not just medical, and it also allows to obtain access to authenticate and analyze articles for similarities. For psychology, psychiatrists, and neurology specialists, PsycInfo is important. So the authors may search through PsycInfo database. Journal editors from Eastern Europe may target this database, and they should know about indexing criteria. First of all, professional relevance. They should publish psychology, neurology, and psychiatric contents. All articles should be peer-reviewed. All issues should be regularly published. Titles should be impressive, relevant, inclusive. They should include professional keywords, abstracts, informative, and keywords should be also informative and in English. So there is also specialist keyword vocabulary for neurologists, psychiatrists, and psychologists from American Psychological Association. Chemical Abstract Service. It's a service database for searches for authors and also target point for journal editors from Eastern Europe publishing biochemical, toxicological, and other related articles. Now about resources for those who are going to become editorial board members and editorial staff members. So they should know about International Committee of Medical Journal Editors. Sooner or later, they should become members of World Association of Medical Editors. They should know about National Information Standards Organization and their requirements, particularly those who are going to index their journals by Medline. Council of Science Editors and their recommendations are important for all specialists in biomedicine and allied disciplines. And of course, Committee on Publication Ethics, platform of recommendations for all specialists interested in publication ethics. Equator Network, of course, for all journal editors, for authors and reviewers. Their standards should be consulted regularly. So over to our moderator. I'm again open to take questions related to this part. I expect some questions in ethical publishing, predatory publishing, and also in choosing uh, databases for searches and for indexing. Over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Arman. Your presentation is very helpful. Among our participants are many journal editors, and some of these journals currently are indexed by Scopus, Web of Science. Other are going to apply for indexing in Scopus and Web of Science. And this information will be very helpful for this application. Yes, dear colleagues, we encourage you to ask questions related to bibliographic databases. I have one question to you. I know that bibliographic databases have many applications and advantages, not only for conducting systematic or narrative review. We can use bibliographic databases, for example, for a selection of topic for our PhD dissertation. Could you provide us with these other advantages of bibliographic databases? The first question and the second questions, based on your rich editor's experience, what are the most common authors' mistakes in narrative and systematic reviews?
Okay, good. So all research managers attending today's webinar, particularly those from Ivano-Frankivsk, from Lviv, from Kharkiv, they should use Scopus for choosing trendy research topic at the start of approving PhD or other types of dissertations. So Scopus is a valuable database for analyzing articles and finding out trendy fields. If they see annual publication activity in some fields increases, it means that it's an important field, and having another dissertation contributing to that trendy field is important and may be valuable. So research managers should use Scopus and Web of Science as well. My preference is Scopus because it's in terms of upgrades, in terms of integration with social media, in terms of coverage of large number of resources, more attractive compared to other databases. So research managers should use Scopus for choosing research themes. Referring to your second question, there are some mistakes of authors who write articles, review articles, narrative and systematic reviews. So when narrative review is written by novice researchers, they usually have search strategies covering Google Scholar, dimensions, covering search platforms, covering non-reputable search platforms as well, local. So they, first of all, should cover PubMed, Scopus, Web of Science, specialist databases, and then if they need, they may also go to other complementary platforms and databases. But they should also pay attention to analytic tools of these databases. Google Scholar analytics tools are limited, and Google Scholar not so helpful for comprehensive and systematic coverage of literature. Relying on Google Scholar only, not valuable, not a viable strategy. Also, Google Scholar searches in one country differs from the same searches in another country. let's say you probably know about Google Trends article types. So these types of articles are important, but they have one important limitation. Google Trends articles published from US quite different from those published in Ukraine, because algorithm of page rank algorithm of Google Scholar provides different list of journal article. So pay attention to these moments and try to use relevant, reliable bibliographic sources, bibliographic databases in the first place. Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions?
What about PhD dissertation? Can we add a separate paragraph such as bibliographic analysis to PhD dissertation?
No, there is no such thing as search strategy for PhD dissertation. But first chapter of PhD dissertation is systematic or narrative review. Discussion is also narrative style review. So these chapters should include statements on search strategies. Beyond dissertations, novice authors should also master search master their search skills to be able to retrieve relevant articles. They should also know difference between different types of databases. Let's say they usually use PubMed. However, PubMed is a platform linked to Medline. Medline is a bibliographic database of abstracts, but not citations. Whereas we need also searches through abstract and citation database. And one of the best databases, of course, Scopus. So at the start of their career, PhD candidates should learn how to analyze literature retrieved from PubMed and from Scopus. And they should also analyze retrieved articles not only in terms of keywords, but also in terms of citations, in terms of social media attention, because there are some minor differences. They should master searches through these databases and search platforms.
Yes, thank you. And we have one important question from our participant, from Neslihan. Thank you for your great presentation. I'm wondering how social media increase research citation. What should we do to increase our research citation?
Okay, thank you very much, Neslihan Gökçen from Kocaeli University. How we can increase citations. So there are many ethical options. First of all, we should refer to social media platforms, and we should increase exposure of our own articles and our journal articles to social media. I understand that there are some differences, country-based differences. Not all countries are well represented at Twitter, Facebook. Not all countries are well represented by online platforms, by digital libraries. The more you expose your articles to digital space, the higher chances of citations. Also, we used to recommend promotion of articles at conferences, face-to-face meetings, but currently it's quite difficult to promote articles this way and to attract citations. Again, we may use webinars, digital or e-congresses, but this option is quite limited to increase citability of our articles and our journal articles. So we may also publish readable articles. So English is good option, readable articles. We may also cover or publish trendy articles to increase citation numbers. But not all topics are trendy, of course, admittedly. So we may also increasingly use digital tools like ORCID IDs. If your authors properly use ORCID IDs and link their articles with ORCID profiles, visibility of articles increase, and indirectly chances of citations also increase. Thank you for excellent question. So everything depends on digitization.
Thank you, Arman. It's clear that we should use Scopus every day and social media also for post-publication
Definitely.
article promotion. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, let's move on to the next lecture.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen, but you should to change, yes, Scopus and Web of Science-based journal metrics. Yes.
So it's our final presentation, and it will be followed by discussion of individual examples. So why at all we need Scopus and Web of Science, and why we shouldn't use other impact issuing platforms? Because Scopus and Web of Science are reliable, reputable platforms issuing reliable and globally acceptable impact metrics based on citations. But before discussing these Scopus and Web of Science based metrics, we should recall legacy of, I was going to say Jeffrey Bill, no. We should recall legacy of Eugene Garfield. Eugene Garfield is a father of bibliometrics and scientometrics. He was behind searches of PubMed. In his time, it was called Army Medicine, United States Armed Forces Medical Library. And then it was changed to National Library of Medicine. Yeah, so National Library of Medicine still uses search strategies, search options proposed by Eugene Garfield. Eugene Garfield also coined the term journal impact factor, which is nowadays popular impact metric, one of the numerous impact metrics, journal impact factor. So his studies showed that there are only a couple of the most influential journals, Nature and Science, and only these two general scientific journals cover the most influential journal articles. In terms of citations, primarily in terms of citations, citation counting was quite problematic in the time of Eugene Garfield. Nowadays, it's much easier, and therefore there are nowadays a number of journal metrics, and understanding of importance of journal metrics is much wider compared to the beginning when Eugene Garfield proposed journal impact factor. He proposed several points in bibliometrics, and still these points are valid up to now. So if there is limited funding, journal libraries should be quite selective towards journals. The same refers to bibliographic databases. They are quite selective, but not because of funding limitations, but because they need to select only the most reputable, the most read, and highly cited journals. So if journal articles are most read, most cited, chances of coverage by Scopus and Web of Science are high. If your articles are cited by journals like Nature, Science, Lancet, reputation of individual articles increases. So if you are going to increase reputation of your journals, you should somehow increase citations from Lancet, from Nature and Science. And of course, there are also some reputable databases like Web of Science databases, Science Citation Index Expanded, Current Contents, and other databases of Web of Science. But of course, Scopus database itself is also the most important database, relatively new. Eugene Garfield, when he started his work, he didn't know about Elsevier database and Scopus. But nowadays, Scopus is also among the most reputable, among the most reliable and well-organized databases. We should know about H index, Hirsch index. Of course, initially it was proposed as index of individual experts, but nowadays it's also used for ranking journals. So you probably know there is certain ranking. Let's say initially, Georg Hirsch, physicist who proposed this index, he considered publications and citations. Let's say Hirsch index of 45 means that an expert published 45 articles, each of which is cited at least 45 times. So we analyzed citations of Georg Hirsch's article, and we found that this article is still quite cited. Annual citations to this article, remarkable article is still high. So it's an important article, an important suggestion, easy metric Hirsch index, and it's quite important to use Hirsch index to rank journals, particularly within subject categories. It's easy to use. Here is an example how to find, how to calculate or how to find out Hirsch index of an individuum. Farrokh Habibzadeh, he published a number of articles, but 6 of his articles are cited at least 6 times. You also see that we can also use Hirsch index to rank countries. Let's say some countries have quite impressive Hirsch index. United States published 2,386 articles, each of which is cited at least 2,386 times. So all these articles, of course, covered by Scopus. And here I present Scimago journal and country rank metric. Countries are also different in terms of their Hirsch indexes because of coverage of their journals by Scopus and because of many other objective and subjective reasons. Differences also exist between academic disciplines. Let's say I analyze here psychiatric mental health subject category, and there are only 40 journals. Some of these journals have relatively high impact in terms of H index, 99, 81. So these are important, impressive metrics. We may also choose subject category and combine with geography, with country, and we may also select articles from certain journals from certain countries, particularly from Poland. If our participants are going to target Polish journals, they may choose some journals analyzing Hirsch indexes, analyzing Simago journal country rank, and also other metrics. And we may also rank journals based on, again, H indexes, Simago journal rank, and a number of other journal metrics, analyzing only within one country. Let's say in Ukraine, there are 65 journals covered by Scopus and monitored by Simago and journal country rank. We may also go to other countries, country-based metrics. Croatia, more journals, 169, and choose journals in our field of interest. Let's say Croatian Medical Journal has H index of 56, which means they published throughout their history 56 articles, each of which is cited at least 56 times. I analyzed H indexes and other journal metrics and found that these metrics, some of these metrics correlate. Let's say H index in the field of rheumatology correlates with journal total sites, 5-year journal impact factor, and some other metrics. However, we shouldn't compare journal metrics between disciplines. We shouldn't compare, let's say, 2-year impact factor in rheumatology and cardiology. Why? Because these are completely different things. Like if you compare Palace of Versailles with Palace of Nakhche Jahan Square, situated in Nakhche Jahan Square, these architectural forms, architectural monuments are incomparable. Each of these architectural masterpieces, unique, exemplary, but comparing not so advisable. So our participants should know also about Simago journal rank. It's a special journal metric which is based on how often your journal is cited by top cited journals. If your journal is cited by journals with higher citation ranks, your Simago journal rank also increases. If you attract a lot of citations from Nature, Lancet, BMJ, or other journals with higher citation ranks, your Simago journal rank also increases. This is a huge problem for Eastern European and some Eurasian journals because their Simago journal ranks are low. This is why they cannot compete with quartile 1, quartile 2 journals, because no one cites their journals. I mean, top rank journals. So if you are going to increase rank of your national local journals, you should somehow increase number of articles attractive for Lancet authors, Nature authors, and ethically increased Simago journal rank. Now, about Scopus. Scopus has now its own unique site score metric, which uses 4-year citation window. Journals covered by Scopus that increase citations to their articles within the same year may easily increase their site score because it's easy. Whereas if your journal wishes to increase journal impact factor from Web of Science, the same year citations do not count to that metric. So journals actively developing, publishing articles on COVID-19 or other trendy topics may increase site score. And how to find site score? For that, you need to go to Scopus. Also, you again should analyze in certain fields. In the field of internal medicine, there are more than 200 journals, and top journal in this field is Lancet Diabetes and Endocrinology, with site score above 37. In the field of psychiatry and mental health, we have more than 770 journals, with top site score of journal World Psychiatry equal to about 33. In the field of communication, number slightly less, more than 400, with much less site score. So article in the field of internal medicine, in the field of psychiatry are cited abundantly, particularly in the same year. So chances of increasing site scores are higher for internal medicine and psychiatry journals compared to communication journals. And we are going to have communication journal from Eastern Europe soon. So Scopus allows us to compare metrics of journals. And to compare metrics, again, you should be very specific which journals you choose. You may choose, let's say, Egyptian rheumatologist and Indian Journal of Rheumatology, because these journals struggle to index with Medline, struggle to attract a lot of citations. But here, frankly, we see that's one of these journals, particularly Egyptian rheumatologist, is more successful in terms of site score and in terms of Scimago journal rank. This HJR is slightly higher, and they also have slightly much higher annual citation number, closer to 500. So these metrics should be taken into account by journal editors to increase citability of their articles and to increase profile of their journals. Now, about profile of top scientific journals. We may go to Scopus, we may find our target journal like Lancet, and we may choose, we may analyze site score. And site score metric is calculated monthly and recorded for last year in May, 1 month before June, 1 month before Web of Science publicizes or Clarivate Analytics publicizes journal impact factor. You see that last year, Lancet published a lot of influential articles which increased site score. It has now an impressive site score because of publishing articles which are immediately cited within the same year. So it's an example of good journal with immediacy impact in terms of citations. Now about 2-year impact factor. It's their formula of calculation quite different, outdated, and it covers 2-year impact window, whereas site score covers 4-year, and more oriented towards recent items, journals with immediacy impact whereas journal citation reports consider limited time window, 2 years, and covers limited number of sources compared to Scopus. Scopus covers more than 25,000 journals, whereas journal citation report is based on 13,000 journals. And there are some differences. There are some specifics of journal impact factor calculation. I am not going to discuss these differences, limitations. Sooner or later, these journal impact factor will become obsolete, and will be replaced by other more updated, more so-called democratic, more acceptable for global community metrics. We are slowly moving towards principles declared by DORA Declaration, San Francisco Declaration on Research Assessment. And one of the main principles of this declaration states that we should use basket of metrics, a number of metrics, not just journal impact factor, but site score and even altmetrics to analyze different journals. It's only relevant, these journal impact factors and all other impact metrics, journal impact metrics, are related to these San Francisco Declaration on Research Assessment. So I encourage our journal editors to officially endorse this declaration and enforce its main points. And in conclusion of this part, I ask all our participants to rely on Scopus and Web of Science citation metrics for journal citation metric calculations, abstain from referring to predatory impact issuing agencies. There are a number of impact issuing agencies. So our journal editors should also avoid cooperating and signing contracts with agencies offering different impact issuing metrics, national, global, specialist based. So there are only two globally acceptable citation metrics, Scopus and Web of Science. Of course, if you wish, you may also present citation metrics of your journal from Google Scholar, from Dimensions, to some extent also from Index Copernicus, but not from other so-called predatory impact issuing agencies. So researchers, reviewers, authors, editors should know how to distinguish reliable journal metrics from spurious, from bogus impact metrics. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Armen. We have one question from Maya Grigorieva. She represents Ukrainian Biochemical Journal. You know, this journal is indexed by Scopus.
And it was indexed by Medline. Okay, yeah. What was the question?
Yes, no, first of all, thanks for the great presentation.
Thank you.
And her question, in our journal, we see a downward trend of the number of reviews. Do you have any recommendation on how this trend could be reversed?
Okay, good question. So first of all, Ukrainian Biochemical Journal is one of the best Eastern European journal. For years, it was indexed by Medline, and in 2017, Medline discontinued covering Ukrainian Biochemical Journal because of problems with XML conversion. They required XML files for metadata, and publisher postponed submission of XML files, and this is why Medline discontinued coverage of that journal and required to reapply to Medline. Now, Ukrainian Biochemical Journal is still covered by Scopus. It has its own site score, other metrics, so it's great journal for Eastern Europe, and it deserves to be covered by Medline, by PubMed Central, and many other databases. So if the journal starts publishing more review articles, particularly narrative review articles, because in the field of biochemistry, it's impossible, almost impossible to publish systematic reviews, because systematic reviews are usually based on clinical trials, on large cohort studies, whereas in biochemistry, in chemistry, authors usually process chemical formulas, other types of substances, materials. So journal may increase their reputation by soliciting more narrative review articles from Nobel Prize winners, from reputable authors, those who publish a lot in the field of biochemistry, and may increase also citations to their journal. So I would encourage to increase number of narrative reviews, solicited narrative reviews written by experts. Also, journal editors should know that Medline calculates percentages of different types of articles. Medline reviews original research papers, letters, case studies. So you should also keep balance. If you publish a journal, you should publish different types of articles. So journal should be attractive for readers interested in review articles, original research papers. Journals that merely publish original research papers cut out their journals from vast, large number of readers who are interested in review articles. So my suggestion to journal editors from Eastern Europe: keep balance in terms of publishing review articles, original research papers, case studies, letters, or in other words, indexable items. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Arman. Is it really technically difficult or probably expensive to prepare XML files for indexing in Medline?
So, you know, the problem is we are not used as medics, we are not used to XML files. We do not understand what does it mean, HTML, PDF, and this is why we do not understand XML files. But basically, all journal editors and authors as well should know that when they publish an article, they should have all items of their articles in place. Proper journal, proper article title, proper affiliations, properly formulated affiliations, keywords, digital tools like ORCID IDs, emails, abstracts, properly formulated, properly written texts, references widely visible. And if all these items are in place, someone, agent, IT specialist easily will convert your Word file into HTML, into XML for different indexing services. Some of you do not know that OJS, all your journals covered by OJS have options to automatically convert into XML for Crossref, for DOAJ, Directory of Open Access Journals. But Medline and PubMed Central require different types of XML conversion. For that, you need to find XML agents. I know that Ivano-Frankivsk National Medical University has one great agent converting metadata of their articles into XML files. And if you have this type of agent, you may apply to Medline. Of course, Medline interested in quality, in evidence-based, and first of all, your journal should meet their indexing, scientific indexing criteria, and then it's easy. You may find an agent who may convert your files to XML for Medline, XML, JATS XML for PubMed Central, but for a certain price. So it's easy and not so expensive. Let's say for 50, I do not want to discuss price, but let's say for an average Eastern European journal with 50 articles annual publication, $1,000 is required to convert files for PubMed Central. It's just an example. But you may find an agent with less price, or you may also master yourself, or your IT specialists may also convert files for XML and for PubMed Central. If you have, you can do it yourself without support of XML agents. You still have to go to PubMed, National Library of Medicine platform and find out whether your file is suitable for coverage.
Thank you. What about PDF and HTML variants? I think that every journal should have both of them because it's really boring and takes a lot of time to download PDF. It's my personal opinion, and I always try to read HTML variant on the journal website to save my time. Yes, if this article is really important for me, I can download this article. Yes.
Okay, so Scopus does not have any requirements related to format of your articles. Simply typographic print or digital quality should be satisfactory. But to increase dissemination of your articles via databases, JGate, and other information aggregators, you need to consult with XML converter agent, and you should have files converted, Word files converted to XML files. So in terms of PDF and XML, of course, registry like Directory of Open Access Journals accepts PDF, HTML, and they also understand that some journal editors face difficulties with converting their files for XML. This is why it's not an obligation for Deutsch, for Scopus, for Web of Science. They manually cover, let's say Scopus, their experts, their agents, Scopus agents, cover your journal texts. Whereas for PubMed Central, journal editors, journal agents submit files to National Library of Medicine. So no one will do this part of work for you. PubMed Central accepts journals for archiving, but accepted journal editors are required themselves to find third-party agent to submit XML, JATS XML files for PubMed Central. So there is also an important point. PDF files not easily downloadable in countries with slow internet access, slow internet with slow internet. This is why for developing countries, it's important to have sorry, for developing countries, XML files are important. I hope my points presented here are clear.
You mean XML or HTML files instead of
HTML files
Mhm.
are required for developing countries and
Yes.
countries where internet access is slow. However, most countries nowadays have proper access to internet, and the main format of articles is PDF. This is why for Scopus applications, you need to have your journal, should have 9 PDF articles. 9 articles in PDF format, not in HTML, not in any other article format, only PDF.
Thank you, Arman. And we have one question from our colleague from Poland, from Jurek. Thanks for your brilliant overview of the topic. And question is the next. The H-index is commonly accepted and has been the optimal indicator of scientific output so far. Oh, probably Jurek, you can ask your question personally because it's too long question for reading.
Hello to everyone. Just briefly, I just wanted
Yes.
to read the question. It's just a comment about, and a question to Armen. What do you think? And to you, Elena, what do you think about Hirsch index is so far the best known indicator of the scientific output? It's true, of course. We all agree. However, we might expect some, probably some a perspective of some new indicators or just new, perhaps new measures of scientific achievements, because if you look at some multi-center studies, long papers, outstanding papers in New England or Lancet or some clinical trials in particular, there are many authors whose Hirsch index could be largely increased or just considerably improved by authorship. However, it doesn't recognize the originality and the real contribution of those authors. In some universities in America, the multi-center studies are usually excluded. So just a comment about the H index. But please note, there are some papers on scientometrics which provide new concepts of new measurements of the scientific output. I could cite them. In the archives of osteoporosis, there was a scientific quality index, SQI, developed by my colleagues. I could cite you in a second, just the reference, just in case. So is H index, to summarize, is Hirsch index perfect? Not necessarily. What do you think, Arman?
Okay, thank you, Professor Konstantinovich from Bialystok, pediatric rheumatology specialist, one of the influential experts in the field of rheumatology, and also one of the supporters of our webinar series. Thank you for an excellent question. I understand that you have a number of PhD fellows, and also some of your colleagues are also interested in increasing their academic rank by increasing number of papers, by increasing citations. Of course, initially when it was proposed, it was easy to work with H index and easy to calculate it manually. If you know just number of articles, someone's articles, and also citations to these articles, you simply manually can calculate H index. In that sense, H index is quite easy to understand and to calculate. And it's easy to find out someone's H index. Let's say let's find out. Braunwald Eugene, founder of modern cardiology, and we can search profile of this guy, and we can see that this guy, Eugene Braunwald, has H index of 210. Eugene Braunwald was born in 1927. He is still quite active as author, as editorial board member, senior cardiologist, senior scientist, and you see that his H index is more compared to even Nobel Prize winners. But Eugene Braunwald is a practicing cardiologist without any Nobel Prizes. So by 210, H index tells us that this senior colleague has been working in his field for years, for decades, and this is why he collected a lot of articles. So which type of articles he published? He published clinical trials, large cohort studies, articles for Science, Nature, Lancet, BMJ, other influential journals, and this is why he collected a lot of articles, each of which cited abundantly. So H index tells us that this colleague published 210 articles, each of which is cited at least 210 times. But we may also use another similar metric, like index 10. How many articles of an individual is and how many articles are cited at least 10 times. It's called index 10. Or how many articles of an individual are cited at least 100 times, index 10, index 1000. I am sure if we go to Scopus and find out how many articles published Eugene Braunwald, with at least 1,000 citations, it will be an impressive number. So everything depends on what type of articles an individual publishes, where and how many articles, and how long this person has been active as an author. So everything depends on a number of factors. And of course, H index, not so suitable to rank specialists who abundantly publish clinical trials with numerous authors or cohort studies with numerous authors. So there are some limitations of H index. Of course, I know that the individual metrics are proposed and used continuously, but traditional classic ones like H index, easy to use, popular, and this index is still in use. Not suitable for novice researchers, novice authors. They need to collect at least 50 articles, to work at least 5-10 years, but we do not have any other handy metric.
Thank you. Thank you for this comment. It was really a fantastic explanation of the mechanisms. How is it born? It's surprising that Jorge Hirsch was just a Mexican one of German origin.
You sure he was Mexican? He was American.
He was he American, but working for a long time in Mexico City.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
And he was physicist. He proposed.
He was, yeah.
His index for physicists. Of course, cardiologists, rheumatologists may complain that number of journals in the field of cardiology, rheumatology is much less compared to physics, and there are many other confounding factors, and H index not so suitable. Again, we should compare H-index values within certain fields. H-index values within rheumatology, and should not compare rheumatology values with physics and other disciplines. That's
Yeah,
the
you
main
comforted
point.
me. Thank you. You calmed me, make me more less stressful.
Okay. No need to worry about H indexes. The most important, we should use again basket of metrics, particularly when we deal with PhD fellows, young fellows with a handful of publications. Some of them are quite smart. Probably physicists, biochemistry specialists also know about phenol methodology proposed by a guy who published a number of articles, but only one article was abundantly cited, several 100,000 times. So we may also rank specialists based on value of articles, implications of articles, not just H-index, but also many other metrics. Thank you.
What about H-index based on Google Scholar?
Okay, yes, you are right. Another hint how to use H-index.
Because it's a really huge difference between H-index based on Google Scholar and H-index based on Scopus or Web of Science.
You are quite right. We should be very careful. We should agree which H-indexes should be used. Of course, Scopus database is acceptable to most. When you use Google Scholar, H-index metric, individual metric is slightly higher. If you compare Scopus-based H-index with Web of Science H-index, again, there is difference. Web of Science is a more selective database or platform, and this is why H-index of Web of Science lower compared to Scopus. Of course, it depends on your university, it depends on discipline, it depends on many other factors. Thank you.
Thank you. And what about altmetric attention score? For example, young researcher can include altmetric attention score on recently published article, yes, in CV, or for example, grant proposal. What about altmetric attention score? Is it useful? Novel authors, yes.
Yeah, it's good for bibliometric and altmetric analysis for certain types of articles. And it's, yeah, some university faculties may be proud of high altmetric attention scores, AAS, of their individual articles. But again, comparing faculty members based on their AAS of individual articles, not so good. Now, we use altmetric attention score, and it's easy. Particularly, here I present how we work. You see my screen?
I can see your screen with your presentation. Would you like to share with us something different? I can see only your presentation.
Right.
No, you should choose other option. Okay, let's one moment. Stop participants sharing. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's try again to share with us what you would like.
Oh, good. Because I was.
I understood.
Okay, good. So you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen. Yes, with PubMed engine. Yes, search.
Okay. Let's go to Lancet. You see?
Yes.
Just follow me. And let's choose any recent article. Okay, navigate to publisher platform. Okay, and now I have in my toolbar altmetric it, and it may see this DOI. So I use altmetric. You see?
One comment from for our participants. This is a free tool. Everybody can upload this tool on his or her browser. Yes.
Okay, you see this article from Lancet. I navigated to publisher platform. Now I navigate to altmetric.com platform, and I can see how many tweets. You see this site article not cited, but it is an impressive article. So with 0 citations, but with about 3,000 tweets and a number of other metrics, this article is quite influential. You see, no 0 citations, but altmetric attention score calculated using their own proprietary algorithm, and with altmetric attention score of about 1200, this article is quite influential. Again, we see one important point. Central Asia not so active in commenting on this Lancet article. Hopefully, our today's participants from Kazakhstan will be more active and contribute more to altmetric attention score. Okay, so we should understand difference between citations, social media attention, to rank individual authors, to evaluate individual articles and also journals. Okay, I also wanted to present here an important, probably you missed this part. So you see, it's free to use. Olena, you can see it?
Yes, your Scopus preview, you mean?
Okay, everyone without any institutional access can go to author search, then calculate, type author names, Eugene Braunwald, or you see Eugene Braunwald?
Yeah.
How many articles? 1,725 articles, H index 210. Yeah, you see these two important metrics?
Sure.
Okay, and then you go to profile of Eugene Braunwald. Slow, it's a bit slow. And you can see latest articles of this guy. Eugene, he's a nice chap, yeah. I met him once in 2007 in Taormina, Italy. So you see, he is still active. He still publishes a lot of articles. 2021 in Journal of American College of Cardiology. And you see also an impressive number of articles cited abundantly. So we should understand difference between H indexes of cardiologists and other specialists. Now, if I go to profile another Eugene, so we had Eugene Braunwald, now we have Eugene Garfield. Both are specialists. You see, Eugene Garfield, founder of Scientometrics, published 255 articles and he covered by Scopus, and his H index is just 36. Why? Because he published in the field of communication, in the field of documentation, library and information science, and citation patterns in this field are quite different. This is why H index of this specialist is much lower. So he deceased, deceased few years ago, but works of Eugene Garfield and his proposal of journal impact factor changed reference research management and also journal publishing. Both are influential guys, influential experts, but with different with different individual H indexes. Now, I also would like to show you some Scimago journal and country rank. Again, you see difference? You see this platform, Olena?
Yes, yes.
Journal rankings and country rankings. Now, I'm not going to discuss country rankings, simply journal rankings. First of all, I should choose, let's say, okay, countries. In relation to countries, journals, Poland. Because Poland is well advanced in terms of journals, English, internationalizations. So 100% of journals from Poland, medical journals, are English journals. This is why they have quite impressive number, 440 journals from Poland covered by Scopus and monitored by Scimago Journal and Country Rank. Now we can limit our searches. Now we can use H index, rank these journals based on H index. Acta Biochimica Polonica has an impressive H index of 76. In Scopus, this journal published 76 articles, each of which is cited at least 76 times. It's clear. So it's quite impressive journal metric, but there are also other journal metrics. So we can use this platform, these tactics to choose proper journal, target journal for our papers. And Ukrainian Biochemical Journal may also compare metrics with this journal because they work in the same field in biochemistry and may understand why one journal is more successful compared to others, to another. Yeah, other questions, comments? I feel that Jurek may comment on these metrics.
No, just you're right. Exactly the same field, and the comparisons are justified, and that's why there is a lot of data, a lot of information today. That's why I'm very distanced or just not critical, but we need to select a narrow
to digest
and very to adjust to select some criteria of comparisons. Otherwise, we are lost. Same with just one short comment regarding the citation and the real citation and altmetrics and social media. I appreciate. I'm not old-fashioned, and I'm not against Twitter or Facebook. However, we need to carefully select or study information included in the Facebook, because it's not Facebook-based medicine, but evidence-based medicine. So you don't take responsibility for all information on Twitter. I know politicians and journal editors, as well as scientists, they express their opinions using Twitter. It's popular, it's accessible, it's just. However, finally, what matters is written, published information as a citation, because you take responsibility what you put in your references, for example, and the sequence of the references, etc. Otherwise, the Twitter and Facebook are just a free agora for discussions. You might say whatever you want. That's why there is a limited responsibility, and my limited trust is a result of this responsibility. So I'm consuming or reading the Twitter information like that.
Double-edged sword.
Right. Sure.
Professor Konstantinovich is right. So we discussed citation metrics and touched upon social media metrics. So these are different metrics. Social media metrics, not universally acceptable, but still we may derive a lot of information from social media metrics, particularly on altmetrics.com platform. So tweets, not always objective, not always scientific, but these are representatives of societal impact. Citations represent scholarly impact, whereas social media represent societal impact, something different. But we may combine when we need, if we need comprehensive approach, we may combine scholarly approach with societal approach.
Totally agree. And Professor Gasparian has highlighted it's lovely, the basket of measurements and basket of criteria. This is which makes the choice very intelligent, not just automatic. Thank you, Armen. Perfect talk.
Olena? Other questions, other comments? I cannot see my chat box. This is why I ask you.
Yes. If you don't have any other questions from our participants, probably because of information overload, because really too much, a bit complicated information, but really essential for us. Yes.
Olena, the difference
yes, we have a new message. Sorry, from
So-
Jerzy again.
No, it's just a comment. Just I leave you the reference of this new concept of my colleague of mine from Silesia. He's quite active the Wojciech Pluskiewicz on the area of scientometry and bibliography, etc. So I could send you privately, Armen.
Yeah, okay. Professor Konstantinovich, we should also, when we have free time, we should discuss also your proposed list of funny journal titles. So I see that there is no funny journal metrics, funny individual metrics. There are only funny journal titles. Yeah, I know that you have controlled list of journal metrics, journal titles, funny journal. We'll discuss these titles.
Thank
funny.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, let's be careful with the funny, with the cabaret, but it's sometimes it's overlapping, don't you think so? The science, the research, and the funny ideas. Well, maybe in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, there is little, not many things, funny things in scientometrics. It's dry science, but we should use citations along with altmetric information to produce new type of literature. And you will see that in the field of rheumatology, in actively developing fields, disciplines will have bibliometric and altmetric articles, particularly by some of participants of today's webinar. So thank you very much, Olena, Professor Konstantinovich, Professor Vasil Lanchina, and all others. Olena, comments? Questions?
It looks like we have discussed all items of today's agenda. Thank you very much, Armen, for your very impressive, helpful presentations. I think that our participants now know almost all about bibliographic databases like Scopus and can use Scopus for conducting systematic review and narrative review and also for other purposes. Thank you very much.
Olena, okay, yeah.
Yes,
I
thank
see.
you, Armen. You know, I am amazed at what information I gather each time we have this webinar. For instance, today.
Dear Vasil, can you start your video because
Sure.
we cannot see you.
Okay, yeah. So,
Yes.
right. So I am, let's see, okay, got it. Got it. Yeah, but you stopped it. You got to unstop me. Okay, there we
Yes.
go.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so again, I'm amazed every time we have these webinars, I learn something new. Today, XML files, I never knew anything about it. And I see the value and the importance of it in going forward, especially with our journal, Medical Sciences, that we must do this if we want to proceed further into the various indexing possibilities. So I thank you. I thank you for that erudite presentation, and the questions and comments were excellent. So again, very good job. Thank you.
Professor Lanchina, thank you very much. The aim of our webinars is to increase quality of articles, quality of journals, upgrade their editorial standards. And one of other aims is to expand our cooperation, international research, online cooperation. In the time of pandemic, this type of meetings, webinars, are essential for strengthening our ties. We cannot meet face to face. We cannot travel long distances, or even within one country, within one city. We have a number of limitations, restrictions for quite some time. But today we have participants from Bulgaria, from Turkey, from Poland, from Kazakhstan. And I think that we have participants who will contribute to science growth in Ukraine, in neighboring countries, and will be active in publishing their articles in English, in local journals, in journals, making good progress. I know that you are associate editor of Proceedings of Shevchenko Scientific Society. Not all of our participants know about Proceedings of Shevchenko Society. It's all this society and all this journal in Eastern Europe. And it deserves to be covered by Medline, not just by Scopus, not just by Web of Science, DOAJ, but also by Web of Science. I think you need to find XML agent who will convert good English articles, particularly from Ukrainian diaspora from US and Canada, because Proceedings of Shevchenko Scientific Society, not just for Eastern Europe, but also for Ukrainian diaspora from other countries, Anglophone countries, and with English articles, high quality English articles, you may find XML agents for metadata conversion and also full text conversion, both for Medline and PubMed Central Archive. I know that in Eastern Europe, neighboring countries are quite actively targeting PubMed Central and Medline nowadays, because everything is dependent on digitizations. So Proceedings should also try to target Medline and become an exemplary journal for not just for Ukraine, but also for neighboring countries. Thank you, Vasil, for your active contribution to this webinar. And also, I'd like to thank other participants. Maya Grigorieva, the editor of Ukrainian Biochemical Journal, Neslihan Gökçen from Kocaeli University, a rheumatologist who is quite active in the field of writing, scholarly writing, and I hope that she will be also active as a author of Hypothesis. I encourage all our participants, PhD candidates, doctoral candidates, to publish their hypotheses first and then elaborate on these hypotheses, publish our original papers, review articles, and other types of articles.
We have one comment from Neslihan. Dear Armen, thank you for your valuable presentation. Thanks all participants who contributed to this great presentation with their impressive questions. Thank you, Neslihan.
Okay, so any other comments from our Anglophone experts? Hike is somewhere. We have one student, medical student from US.
Yes.
Hike, are you over there? Okay, he left. Okay, but we had, okay.
So just to reflect back on this year of COVID that has prevented us from meeting in person, which of course is the best way of meeting. But the silver lining is that we've met so frequently virtually that we are, number one, exchanging information, number two, gaining information, number three, extending our network and gaining. I mean, now we had 33, I think, participants today. That's, you know, that's incredible that with each seminar, we're getting more and more. So I think that is a silver lining, that that we are more active and continuing, you know, our education.
Yes, and happy Easter to all our participants who are going to celebrate Easter this Sunday. Yes.
Olena, it's time to express our gratitude to our participants. Yes. I just would like to name them. Yelena Bandarenko from Kharkiv, Neslihan Gökçen, Turkey, Ahmet Akyol, Turkey, Burhan Fatih, Turkey, Reshit, again from Turkey, Svetoslav Georgiev, Bulgaria, Vladimir Abuajev, Bulgaria, Vitalina, Lina Mladenova, Bulgaria. Who else from Bulgaria? Okay, Dana.
Rositsa also is with us, yes.
Rositsa Dacheva, thank you. From Kazakhstan, we have Ainur Kumar and also probably others. Okay, from Poland, Jerzy Konstantinovich, our good friend, and also other professors from Eastern Europe, Roman Yatsishin.
Yes, also is with us.
Supporter and one of our contributors, Oksana Zaychkivska from Lviv.
Andrei Borisovich Zimankovsky also is with us.
Chief editor of Acta Medica Leopolensia, yeah, okay. Another good journal, another flagship journal from Eastern Europe. Okay, so today we've had an impressive attendance, particularly because of excellent promotion and because of interesting points discussed during today's webinar. And we will have other webinars as well. Some of past webinars covered scientometrics, writing issues, language issues. So we also would like to encourage our participants to publish more in readable English, avoid cooperating with commercial editing agencies, write their articles without any external support, and publish with top scientific journals. Probably it would sound quite ambitious, but why not with Lancet, with Nature, and other top specialist scientific journals. So good luck to all. Happy Easter to all those who are going to celebrate. And I hope to see all next time. Stay healthy and well.
Yes, I see you soon on the next webinar, and have a happy Easter.
Thank you.
Bye. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Good night.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.